This image shows a human hand on the left and a robot hand on the right. Their index fingers are touching in the middle. Figure 10. One ethical managers will understand new business models and the new economies being driven by technological advances and the rise of robotics and artificial intelligence in the workplace. Credit, Modification of Hand Robot Human Divine Spark by Geralt/Pixabay, CC0. Chapter Outline 10. One more telecommuting or less. 10. Two workplace campuses. 10. Three alternatives to traditional patterns of work. 10. Four robotics, artificial intelligence, and the workplace of the future. Beginning in the 18th century, in much of the Western world, the Industrial Revolution transformed the nature of work as industry displaced agriculture, as the main driver of the economy and machines took over manual labor. Continuing technological changes have further altered the way people work, and even the time and place where they do so. Growing numbers of people now spend some of their time working at home. Are they more productive without the distractions of the office or less productive without constant monitoring by managers? Some major companies like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Microsoft have constructed elaborate workplace campuses, offering unprecedented levels of amenities and even employee housing. Do these campuses facilitate the balancing of work and life, or do they blur the distinction and tie workers to their jobs instead? Job sharing and flexible work schedules have emerged as alternatives to traditional patterns of work. These practices permit some workers to more easily fulfill work and life responsibilities. But does job sharing reflect employers' efforts to respond to workers' preferences, or is it a move to reduce costs? How will you prepare employees for the impact of robots at work, Figure 10.1, or manage the outsourcing of tasks to contractors in the gig economy? These challenges to traditional employment settings carry ethical implications for all stakeholders, including employers, employees, suppliers, customers, and clients. Learning objectives. By the end of this section, you will be able to identify the benefits of permitting employees to work from home, explain the drawbacks of telecommuting for the business and for employees, discuss the ethical dilemmas related to telecommuting and some of the solutions. What if your business wanted to expand its local operations from 6 employees to 10, but did not have the office space to add more workers? Today's businesses have a toolkit of technical solutions to set up working relationships with employees far and wide through voice, computer, video connections, and off-site work-sharing spaces. Coworkers can share files on a remote network server or on the cloud, and managers can use non-traditional methods to monitor activity and performance. Companies like General Assembly, WeWork, and WorkBar are leasing access to communal spaces equipped for the business needs of remote workers. Telecommuting is therefore easier to implement than ever. But what exactly are the benefits and drawbacks of telecommuting, and what ethical issues does it raise? Telecommuting and its advantages. The term telecommuting emerged in the 1970s to describe the practice of working at a specific location, whether the employee's home or an alternate office, to reduce commuting time to a centrally located office space or store. Telework was greatly facilitated by new telecommunications technology, including the internet, email, and mobile phones. Today, telecommuting means any mode of working at a remote location, home or other space, by virtue of an electronic connection and/or telephone, and encompasses a variety of employment types, from gig assignments to part-time contract work to traditional full-time employment. The most recent census data reveal that almost 4 million U.S. employees skip the commute for at least part of each week. And according to a 2012 poll, worldwide, 1 in 5 workers telecommutes frequently, with approximately 10% working from home every day. One Figure 10.2 depicts the growth in telecommuting in the United States, China, India, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom. Clearly, employers are embracing telecommuting as a tool for flexibility, on a scale from occasional use to full-time implementation. 2. This graphic is titled Percentage of Employers Offering Telework Options. It shows 6 circle charts in a row. From left to right, they are United States, 90%, China, 85%, India, 77%, United Kingdom, 72%, France, 71%, and Germany, 71%. Figure 10. 2. As more employers provide the opportunity for telework, fewer people are commuting to a corporate office every day. Attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC BY 40 license. Employees can connect to networked company computers from home and use work-enhancing tools on their laptops, tablets, and smartphones to make real-time connections by voice, text, or video with inexpensive or free applications or apps like FaceTime and Skype. Other software solutions like GoToMeeting or WebEx make setting up and even recording a synchronous meeting with sound and video possible for even the smallest companies at fairly low cost. The communication and productivity tools that facilitate telecommuting can only grow in number and sophistication. Virtual reality tools like Microsoft's mixed reality allow a worker in one location to communicate with the holograph of another person in real time. For example, this technology could enable a job interview with a remote candidate. Of course, the use of technology brings with it the need to ensure information security and protection against hacking, including guaranteeing the authenticity of the persons engaging via this technology. Employers allow employees to telecommute for a variety of reasons. First, it is a powerful recruiting tool for people who want to balance their work and personal lives. It allows employees to work a more flexible schedule to care for children or older relatives while maintaining a career and earning income. 3. Individuals with ability challenges also prefer the flexibility that telecommuting affords them. 4. Telecommuting also reduces the hours that employees spend traveling to and from the job and can help keep cars off the road. Fewer workers commuting equals less crowding on public transportation. 5. Fewer cars mean less air pollution as well. The average U.S. employee, who commutes 30 miles in 60 minutes per day, will save more than $1,000 on gas per year by telecommuting, along with associated costs of parking and vehicle upkeep and insurance. 6. Remote workers can continue to do their jobs despite weather conditions that impede travel. They are not exposed to sick coworkers, germs, and may take fewer sick days, which sometimes translates to fewer sick days company-wide. Remote employees are also seldom late for work or early to leave when their workday starts at home. More broadly, there is a good deal of evidence suggesting that telecommuting has beneficial effects on worker productivity. For example, a call center study reported in the Harvard Business Review found that telecommuting employees made 13.5% more calls, resigned their positions at only half the usual rate, and had much higher job satisfaction compared with employees who did not telecommute. 7. The Colorado Department of Transportation, in a study of telecommuting productivity for a branch that issued permits, found 48% faster turnaround times for issuing permits and 5% more calls for telecommuters. 8. Furthermore, studies of J.D. Edwards teleworkers found them to be 20 to 25% more productive than their office colleagues. American Express employees who worked from home were 43% more productive than workers in the office. 9. With none of the distractions of a traditional office setting, like water cooler gossip and long lunches, and with a happier attitude, workers tend to enjoy when they have control over their work lives. Telecommuting facilitates increased efficiency and productivity, and also typically results in higher retention of workers, thereby reducing recruiting and training costs for firms. Studies have shown that a person who commutes for an hour a day experiences added stress, anxiety, social isolation, and possibly depression. 10. Perhaps that is why companies that implement telecommuting experience less absenteeism overall. 11. It may also be easier to collaborate when not sharing a limited amount of space, such as in a cubicle forest, and people may be more willing to share resources with one another when the total number of workers present at the facility is reduced. Another point is that there may be less chatting and gossip among remote workers who are not in daily contact with each other or their colleagues. Employers may be attracted to telecommuting for other reasons. Having remote employees can reduce office space costs. 12. In fact, a company can consider expanding even when there is no available real estate or capital to enlarge or improve the physical facilities. Companies that hire remote employees can also widen their pool of potential applicants. 13. They can choose recruits with better job skills than the local population could provide and expand their sales and marketing territory by hiring employees based in a new area. Finally, there are many external environmental benefits of telecommuting. We have seen that a business that reduces total office space also reduces its impact on the environment. 14. Remote workers would increase their individual consumption of utilities while working at home, but chances are that their home's energy consumption partially continues during the time spent at a traditional job as well. Figure 10. 3. This graphic has a photo in the center and 3 boxes branching off of it. The photo in the center shows a woman working outside on a laptop. One box is titled Employee Benefits, and the bulleted points are saves time, reduces spending on gas, decreases stress, and improves work-life balance. The next box is titled Employer Benefits, and the bulleted points are reduces spending on real estate, utilities, overhead, and increases employee productivity. The last box is titled Other Benefits, and the bulleted points are reduces greenhouse emissions, decreases dependence on oil imports, and aligns with future trending, bring your own device, software as a service. Figure 10. 3. Telecommuting is becoming more common around the world. The phenomenon stands to benefit remote workers and also their employers. Credit photograph. Corey Zanker/Flickr CC by 40. Figure attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax under CC by 40. License. The drawbacks of telecommuting. In 2013, Yahoo's then Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Marissa Mayer, ended the company's work-at-home policy, contending that the change would boost communication and collaboration by bringing people back to the office to work with their colleagues face-to-face. 15. IBM, Aetna, and Bank of America followed her lead, citing a greater need for collaborative communication to compete with smaller firms. 16. A backlash in the media followed this announcement, because working at home is popular among Yahoo employees. Yahoo has since shown greater flexibility in allowing some employees to once again work at home. 17. But recent research does reveal that employees collaborate more creatively when they meet to discuss projects face-to-face. This finding has important implications for firms dependent on research and development for their future growth. In fact, Steve Jobs designed the Pixar facility to increase the likelihood of conversations that would promote idea generation. 18. Corporate culture is not easy to convey over distance. The remote worker might have developed certain working habits at a different company with a different corporate culture, sometimes in another country. It can be challenging to help employees adapt to the culture of a new company when they work remotely. 19. It is also more difficult for employers to monitor some kinds of work-related progress when an employee is working remotely. The likelihood of miscommunication increases when everything must be transmitted electronically or virtually. 20. A manager cannot manage by walking around when the worker is remote. There are no incidental opportunities to witness a worker interacting with a client or customer. 21. Workers may also be more hesitant to ask for direction on a project. Some managers worry that employees will slack off if there is no one there to watch them. 22. The remote worker may have qualms about privacy when his or her personal life inevitably intersects with the workday, as when a family member walks into the room or the dog barks during a conference call. 23. Children may be confused when it seems like their parent is home, but is not available for meals or play or homework help. It may be difficult for remote workers to maintain a work-life balance when their home becomes their office, especially if their hours are flexible. Workers may have to set aside living space for a home office and spend money to buy computing equipment, a desk, and other supplies. Furthermore, it is difficult for an on-site technology team to provide technical assistance or secure data at the level the company may require when people are working at home. Moreover, when the definition of the workplace begins to blur, who is responsible for injuries that occur on the job at home? The employer is unable to exercise the same control over safety measures that holds in a traditional workplace. 24. There may also be productivity concerns. Some remote workers will rise to the challenge of motivating themselves to work diligently. In fact, studies have shown that some remote workers are more productive than their traditional counterparts. 25. But it is not easy to sort potential employees into workers and procrastinators without some period of trial and error, which may be costly. Not all fields are equally suited to telecommuting. Some jobs require consistent in-person contact with clients or customers, such as counseling, physical therapy, and medicine. 26. Some industries need the highest computer security, such as banking and finance. Other work settings, such as law enforcement, have increased needs for building security that would make working remotely an unsafe alternative for employees. 27. The biggest drawback of telecommuting for the individual employee is the bias that studies reveal in employer attitudes. Most managers, after all, attain their status in a traditional job. When some employees telecommute and others do not, those who are in the physical presence of the employer every day can more easily make an impression, good or bad, simply by interacting with their manager. There is also some indication that employees who opt for a non-traditional work arrangement may be penalized if they are perceived as lazy or less dedicated than those who maintain traditional work hours. Employers might have a stronger recollection of the work produced by the employee they see regularly than they do of the work a remote employee is submitting online. Therefore, promotions and important projects may go to employees who are more visible. The remote employee might eventually be left without equal footing in the push for increased pay and status. The ethical challenges of telecommuting. Ethical employers must juggle the potential ethical challenges of managing remote employees, including developing trust in remote workers, encouraging trust among project team members when some are working remotely, keeping equity in mind when reviewing the performance of remote and in-office staff, and deciding which employees get to work remotely. Supervisors also must guard against abuse of the remote work opportunity, maintain the security of the remote employees' work-related data, foster a level of collaboration that is vital to product development, and protect the remote worker's safety. 28. How can managers meet these challenges? Although it is easy to consider allowing telecommuting for those who simply ask, managers should instead categorize jobs, not people, by their suitability for remote work. Best Buy recently announced it would modify its work-from-home policy for employees in its corporate office, changing it from a perquisite, or perk, of employment to one granted by management on a case-by-case basis, and mindful of the circumstances of individual workers. 29. Managers should also carefully set up a framework of policies to govern at-home work and ensure fairness. For example, there could be a standard for how much time each person should spend in the office. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology created a remote pilot project in its executive education program. 30 employees were encouraged to work remotely 2 or 3 days each week and to be present in the office each Wednesday. After 6 months of the pilot program, 100% of the employees recommended its continuation. Link to learning. Watch this video tracing some of the history of workplaces and speculating about innovations in the future, many of which relate to telecommuting to lean more. Keep a list of the telecommuting-specific innovations and identify any ethical concerns related to them. Managers should set clear expectations for remote workers, such as maintaining professionalism while working and accomplishing a certain volume of work or number of tasks by a certain time. Those who meet these goals should be rewarded. In the interests of fairness and equity, neither expectations nor rewards should differ from those established for in-house workers. The ethical employer communicates trust in his or her employees when implementing telecommuting. That trust is based on respect for the employee's motivation and the recognition that the employee has needs that are important in establishing work-life balance. 31. Perhaps the employer's vote of confidence in the employee's ability to work well remotely is the reason that productivity tends to increase in successful telecommuting programs. 32. The figure 10. 4 caption lists some of the best practices of successful telecommuting programs. This photo shows a smartphone set up on a tripod for a video conference. Figure 10. 4 telecommuting is more likely to succeed when remote employees are provided with the right technology, are empowered by inclusion in the corporate culture, and interact with colleagues in a manner that clearly expresses their expectations, values, and trust. Credit, modification of Daily BW. Hanging Out with My Coworkers by Mike McCune/Flickr, CC by 20. It would be unethical to place workers without assistance in a new situation in which they can easily fail. Telecommuting workers must be trained in time management skills so they can maintain their productivity in an environment that may have more or different distractions than a traditional workplace and may make different demands on their time. Training should also strengthen communication skills, such as responding to messages promptly, that help ensure success in a remote setting. To help guard against the risk that telecommuting employees will be unfairly considered out of sight, out of mind, the ethical company will adopt written expectations about timely communication in both directions. For instance, it should ensure that managers' lines of communication are as open to their remote employees as they are to those who can drop by their desk or office to chat. Finally, many firms with successful telecommuting programs create a social network among employees. They sponsor online social occasions to help employees bond even though they are not in the same place. Workers can then find a way to have some virtual fun despite the distance that might separate them. 33. Learning objectives. By the end of this section, you will be able to compare the workplaces of yesterday, today, and the future. Describe the benefits and potential drawbacks of workplace campuses. Identify ethical challenges in the development of workplace campuses. The physical workplace is changing. Most companies still inhabit traditional office spaces in which managers and employees each have an allotted space, whether an office, a cubicle, or just a desk. However, a growing number are redesigning their spaces with fewer separate offices, substituting flexible or shareable workstations built around communal space. 34. The idea is that such open-plan environments allow for more collaboration and brainstorming, because employees are no longer walled off from one another. Shared, multi-purpose spaces open to all allow people to gather informally throughout the day. In effect, then, these changes are aimed to augment productivity. In another trend, companies like Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, and Alphabet, which owns Google, are developing expansive campus-like facilities that offer generous on-site amenities like recreation centers, fine dining, parks, walking and biking paths, climbing walls, free snacks, childcare facilities, basketball courts, haircuts and massages, and laundry, dry cleaning and car wash operations. In airy spaces, often powered by renewable energy sources. Figure 10. 5. 35 Facebook and Alphabet Google have plans for building megacorporate campuses that also include housing. Facebook plans to reserve 15% of its housing units for low-income neighbors, but in both cases, it is anticipated that most residents of these campuses will be employees. 36. Presumably, workers who do not have to commute to and from work every day will be happier and more productive. This photo shows a garden next to a building with benches and walkways. Figure 10. 5. This herb garden at the Googleplex, Google's headquarters, is an outdoor area where workers can sit and contemplate nature. The garden is part of a farm-to-table program to teach Googlers about how their food is grown. Credit: Googleplex by Pamela Carls/Flickr, CC by 20. New workplace arrangements like these effectively serve as fringe benefits for employees that presumably offer the flexibility and work-life balance promised by corporate recruiters. Yet, looking from a different angle, we might consider the motivations behind these complexes to be less than altruistic, because such campuses encourage workers to stay in the office far longer than they might otherwise. Is this the case? Furthermore, if so, do they result in the same or higher levels of productivity? What ethical challenges do they present for the employer and the employee? Workplace campuses and historical precedents. Traditional workspaces are designed to allow each person to get the maximum amount of work completed each day, spending most of the time alone in a fairly utilitarian environment with minimal distractions. The size and location of the offices indicate status. Corner offices are prized, and lunchrooms or cafeterias and water coolers provide the only place for brief social encounters. State-of-the-art workplaces today, however, incorporate technology and encourage collaboration. Ergonomic furniture is available for comfort, and laptops and tablets allow workers to move around the facility as desktop computers could not. In fact, workers in the new flexible workplace spend less than 50% of their time at a desk. 37. Moreover, as we discussed in the previous section, many enjoy the flexibility of telecommuting as needed. Furthermore, in open-plan spaces, all work positions' locations are alike. Status is not signaled by location or size. Link to learning. Watch this promotional video for one technology company whose employees work in a campus-like setting to learn about some of the benefits. As early as the 1960s, large companies like Bell Labs built suburban compounds for their corporate headquarters, but they were a far cry from the campus settings of Apple and Google today. Bell Labs' design, for example, was a series of laboratories and office buildings grouped together, with a functional cafeteria. Workplace campuses are also modeled on university campuses that provide a relatively complete work and living environment for students. As noted, Facebook and Google are building apartments near their corporate campuses. Facebook's new project, named Willow Village, is near Menlo Park, California, and will include some 1,500 units. Employees who lease an apartment there will be eligible for a company bonus. 38. The future workplace campuses and megacorporate campuses with housing bear a superficial resemblance to 19th and early 20th century company towns, which existed around the world. In a company town, the stores, entertainment venues, and housing were all owned by the same company, which also employed everyone in a local factory or mine. 39. The remote locations of factories sometimes made it necessary for such employers to provide workers with housing and a means to acquire the necessities of life. But those who lived and worked in the company town paid for all purchases from their wages, which, of course, went straight back to the employer. The owners and builders of company towns, like George Pullman or Henry Ford, were often idealists who envisioned creating a social utopia. 40. But the towns and their owners could also be paternalistic and self-serving. Indeed, company towns created what is called a monopsony in the labor market, where there is only a single buyer, and the economic analysis of monopsony shows that, with the lack of competition for labor, wages of workers are suppressed. That is, a monopsonist in the labor market can leverage its market power. Because it is the only firm hiring, it can pay its workers less. 41. Company towns began to disappear when cars became affordable and employees could drive to work. However, all that driving lengthened some work days and disrupted the balance people enjoyed between working hours and personal time. Like telecommuting, corporate villages are one approach to cut down drive time. However, critics of Facebook's Willow Village are calling the property Zucktown and wondering whether the development will further blur the work-life balance for employees of Mark Zuckerberg's social media company. Cases from the real world. Acuity's workplace campus. Employees at Acuity, an insurance provider in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, enjoy amenities beyond the imagining of the average U.S. worker. The company offers flexible workdays, on-site leadership training, tuition reimbursement for continuing education, and company scholarships. Its $130 million campus also provides an on-site fitness center complete with a climbing wall, a garden, and a cafeteria serving nutritious meals. Employees are offered the services of an on-site massage therapist, and there are on-site banking and dry cleaning services. The campus was designed to be a showpiece at the entrance to the town of Sheboygan. In fact, it features a working Ferris wheel and a theater in the round that seats 2,000, which the company makes available for community events and town hall meetings. Critical thinking. What do you think about a company that would build a multi-million-dollar workplace campus that also serves as a center for community events? What does the investment communicate about the company's core values and stakeholder focus? Should company facilities be only for employees? The pursuit of work-life balance. 25% of U.S. employees in multiple industries were recently surveyed and reported feeling super stressed as they juggled work and home responsibilities. 42 daily stress from trying to maintain work-life balance can produce health effects like reduced immunity and inadequate sleep. Stressed workers are also less productive in the workplace. Efforts to offer employees an ever-widening array of amenities appear to be an effort by employers to create work-life balance and make their companies more desirable as places of employment. The idea is that life is simpler if food is readily available and free at work, if a doctor's office or hair salon is just down the hall, and if home is right on campus. Some research shows that millennials believe integrating work and leisure in some combination fosters work-life balance. 43. They may see less need to have clear boundaries between their work world and their home life as technology pushes them to be connected in so many ways that once did not exist but now seem inescapable. E.g., an employee of a global firm that conducts business around the clock may never be truly separated from the office due to connectivity provided by mobile devices. Have employers then crossed a line with these perks? Have they created an expectation that the employee who works on a corporate campus, where all needed services are provided, will, in turn, be accessible for long hours of work on a regular basis? Are the amenities really velvet handcuffs that tie employees to work? Living right next to work clearly will reduce commuting time, and via this path, it may promote work-life balance. But the expectation that long hours should be routine just because they are possible will hamper, rather than facilitate, the quest for work-life balance. Furthermore, to the extent that megacorporate campuses do tie workers to their jobs, reduced worker mobility means that labor markets will be less able to adjust to changing conditions. The ethical challenges of workplace campuses. It is hard to imagine that anyone could find fault with a job that came with all the amenities of a campus-like environment. However, the all-encompassing aspect of these workplaces means a manager's job description greatly expands to include small city management functions. As the April 2018 shooting of employees at YouTube's headquarters suggests, corporate campuses may have a greater need for security, with duties that dovetail those of the city police. Growth of the compound will challenge managers to comply with city planning and zoning regulations. How should these villages within a city contribute to the municipal services they need for the population they draw? Should the city be able to require a greater tax contribution from megacorporate campus developers that equals the load they add to the city's fiscal responsibilities? Cases from the real world. A new slice of the apple. In 2011, Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, appeared before the Cupertino City Council to present his proposal for a new Apple headquarters on the outskirts of the city. The project, which was approved, is known as the Ring. It encompasses 2.8 million square feet and costs some $5 billion to construct. Jobs planned the innovative facility to inspire engineers and programmers charged with creating new Apple devices and tools. Figure 10. 6. Its shape is meant to allow them to collaborate while maintaining a connection to nature. Jobs, who died in 2011, also hoped the building would enable Apple to better safeguard its secrets, because it is large enough to house so many employees and data systems in one secure location. The building is sustainable due to solar panels that provide all its energy needs, and the campus includes 9,000 drought-resistant trees planted to withstand a changing climate. Parking is limited by design to encourage employees to use public transportation and share rides. 44. This image shows a rendering of a large, ring-shaped building. Figure 10. 6. This likeness of the Apple Ring provides a sense of the scale of the building, which boasts a 4-story cafeteria. Attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 4. 0 license. Critics, however, say the ring's outer city location and inward-looking shape, giving many in it a view of only the other side of the building, discourage employees from being a part of Cupertino's life. 45. Others argue that remodeling an existing building in the heart of the city would have done more for Cupertino's local economy. 90% of ring workers are not local. They commute to their jobs, and so they might not have made an impact on the city even if Apple had made a different decision. Shareholders also objected to the facility because of its cost, which may have reduced Apple's ability to issue more corporate dividends. 46. However, Jobs' approach to the Apple campus is unquestionably part of a growing trend to create company compounds. Critical thinking. Should a company build in the inner city to integrate its workforce with the community and reduce the traffic consequences of adding its workforce to the local population? Is it better for a company to support local restaurants or build its own restaurant facilities? Is it ethical for a company to spend so much on building a corporate facility instead of increasing shareholder dividends? Should there be zoning laws regarding corporate campuses? Learning objectives. By the end of this section, you will be able to explain the benefits, drawbacks, and ethical issues of job sharing and flex time. Describe the business models that have emerged in the new millennium. Discuss the ethical challenges businesses face in the gig economy. New ideas about the way we work and for how long, as well as the business models we use, are challenging many traditional business strategies. Job sharing and flexible hours, or flex time, the access or sharing economy, and the rise of gig workers all force us to evaluate how they affect management, employees, and customers alike. Although new business models provide increased autonomy and flexibility, they have also led to the rise of what some call the new precariat. 47. The precariat, for precarious proletariat, is a new social class of people whose work offers little predictability or security. The existence of such a class raises ethical dilemmas for business managers, who may be tempted to substitute gig workers, to whom benefits like health insurance are ordinarily not provided, for regular employees entitled to costly benefits. 48. Job sharing and flex time. In job sharing, Two or more employees perform the work of a full-time position, each taking part of the total workload for the job. For example, one job-sharing employee might work 3 8-hour shifts a week, and the other would take 2 such shifts at the same job. In some ways, job sharing is simply another name for part-time work. The two people need not work equal numbers of hours, but they perform a single job, doing the same tasks and shouldering the same responsibilities. Unlike nurses, who work shifts but each has their own job, job sharers work one job between them. Most people in the United States seek a full-time job of 35 hours a week or more, usually because they want the income and benefits, such as health insurance, that often come with such a job. But some are willing to forgo full-time work because they need or want to care for children or an elderly or ailing family member, pursue their education, run a business on the side, or volunteer. Allowing two people to share a job is an option that can lead to enhanced work-life balance for both individuals. A job-sharing parent can work weekends only, for example, saving on daycare costs during the week. Many job sharers report less stress and an increased ability to produce high-quality work. Studies have shown that many accomplish more in a shorter workweek due to higher morale. 49 Typically, there is less absenteeism when the team can plan around the appointments and vacations of each individual. 50 Job sharing may also reduce the absenteeism of employees with children by providing increased flexibility to cover family emergencies or obligations. There is even a synergistic effect when two people bring their insights to problems that one person would usually face alone. 51. Employers find that hiring two individuals to fill one job also opens the door to recruiting new talent. Job sharing might allow an employer to retain a knowledgeable associate who is ready to cut back work hours. Furthermore, an employee who is leaving or retiring can share the job for a time to train a replacement. Many job sharers apply for jobs as a team. Those who have successfully shared a job advocate for setting clear performance expectations and progress checkpoints. Two employees might share an email account and brief each other daily on their work. 52 Specific examples include translators of legal documents at an international law firm. One translator takes the morning shift, the other, the afternoon. Or technical writers at an engineering firm. One might work Monday through Wednesday noon, the other, Wednesday afternoon through Friday. This scenario works when common documents are being written or translated. If the job sharers are equally competent, work can be passed off to one another at specific intervals. Other aspects of job sharing actually benefit employers, but not necessarily employees. Replacing a full-time position with two or more part-time employees may allow an employer to avoid paying for the benefits to which a full-time employee would be entitled, such as health insurance mandated by the Affordable Care Act, and sometimes optional benefits as well. The number of involuntary part-time workers varies over the course of the business cycle. In 2009, as a consequence of the Great Recession, U.S. Department of Labor Statistics put the number of involuntary part-time workers at more than 9 million. In mid-2018, that number was just below 5 million, 53. There are some purely business drawbacks to job sharing. First, the practice does not work in all fields. Second, some work can suffer because of the extra time, and sometimes expense, necessary for coordination between job-sharing partners, especially if neither is formally in charge. 54 Job-sharing arrangements also presuppose that the two people are going to work together collaboratively, but competitive instincts could lead one partner to withhold information or even sabotage the project. Another drawback is the 2 Mondays effect, the potential productivity loss due to the time it takes each partner to get up to speed on the first day back. 55 Finally, some managers do not want the added responsibility of managing two people instead of one. Link to learning. Job sharing has many advantages for employees and employers alike. Watch this video about some of the benefits of job sharing to learn more. The ethical question raised by job sharing boils down to whether the employer is hiring job sharers to improve productivity and meet employee preferences, or hiring part-time workers to improve profitability at the employee's expense. The ethical employer hires employees to best serve the needs of the customer and the company while respecting the needs of each employee. The first step in ethically managing a job-sharing partnership is to pick the right job to share. Data entry jobs and those that require less supervision and coordination between partners are more easily managed. Then, with both employees present, the manager should spend some time creating a shared written agreement about procedures to follow and responsibilities to accept. 56. Follow-up is important to be sure job sharers are working cooperatively and meeting their goals. What would you do? Staffing trade-offs. You are a department head in a mid-sized clothing manufacturing firm in a time of high unemployment. Your manager is always worrying about the bottom line and cash flow. She has asked you, as marketing employees retire or leave, to split a number of their positions into part-time jobs that do not require the company to offer benefits like health insurance. Your boss says many job applicants want this kind of employment. You are not so sure. You are reluctant to replace jobs offering good benefits with jobs that offer none, and you are seeking powerful arguments with which to persuade your boss to abandon the plan. Critical thinking. What points support the job-sharing plan? How would it benefit the company, the employees? What negative effects might it have on the company and the employees? Is job sharing better for some positions in a department than for others? Do you have any concerns about potential employment discrimination if this plan is implemented? If so, what would they be? Is creating job-sharing positions the right thing for the company, customers, employees to do in this situation? The practice of offering flexible hours, or flex time, lets employees choose their own start and finish time each day, arriving and leaving earlier or later than the normal 9 to 5 workday. Parents benefit particularly because they are better able to schedule their work around their children's lives. Women are the predominant users of this family-friendly work policy. 57. FlexTime was a starting place for creative new approaches to work. Teams now trade shifts to accommodate members' needs for time off. Some companies allow a compressed work week that caters to the efficient employee who can get a week's work done in less than 40 hours. In some professions, such as accounting, employees might be allowed a reduced schedule during the off-season. 58. All these variations allow employers to recruit a more diverse workforce. No longer is it necessary that someone be free of weekday responsibilities to have full-time work and gainful employment. FlexTime also benefits clients and customers because companies can extend their hours of operation when workers are willing to cover flexible shifts. 59. Ethical employers base the decision to allow FlexTime on a clear and well-written policy that relies on objective job-related criteria. Without an objective policy, employees could claim discrimination if all were not eligible. 60. Employers should also be aware of the law. In some states, daily work hours are set by law, and allowing some employees to work more than 8 hours a day might require payment of overtime. Some studies have found a troubling bias against employees who request a later start to the workday. 61. Managers may incorrectly regard people who prioritize an early start as more desirable employees and attribute a request for a late start to lack of motivation. Managers need greater supervisory skills to ensure FlexTime workers are using their time productively and to effectively manage teams in which some are working flexible hours and others are not. The access economy and online platforms. The access economy is essentially a resource circulation system in which consumers participate on both sides of a transaction, as both providers and obtainers of resources. The transaction is usually facilitated by a third party acting as a go-between. The model sometimes called peer-to-peer or P2P, is particularly popular when the asset is expensive to obtain and is not fully consumed by the user, such as a house or condo. In the traditional capitalist economic model, goods are bought and sold by businesses and individuals. But in the access or sharing economy, goods and services are traded on the basis of access rather than ownership. In this business model, owners make money from underused assets. The global online hospitality marketplace is an example. Airbnb says consumer hosts in San Francisco who rent out their homes do so for an average of about 60 nights a year, making almost $10,000 from such rentals. Car owners using the service relay rides make an average of $250 a month from allowing others to use their cars. This helps consumers supplement their incomes or even finance the purchase of the assets they share. Many of the original sharing economy businesses are now household names, including Airbnb, Uber, and Lyft. Thousands more are part of the P2P decentralized markets. Most sharing or collaborative economy business models use the internet to facilitate transactions, so it might be more accurate to refer to them as part of the online platform economy. However, whereas some facilitate the renting of assets, such as real estate, think Airbnb, others are essentially selling labor, think TaskRabbit, and some bridge the two categories by offering a combination, think Lyft. See Figure 10. 7. The new business models all have something in common, however. A decentralized and democratized marketplace featuring broad-scale participation, with consumers serving multiple roles. This graphic shows two circles stacked on the left with a plus sign in the middle of them. The top circle says labor platforms, and the bottom circle says capital platforms. Then to the right of that is an arrow pointing toward another circle that says online platforms in the access economy. Figure 10. 7 online platforms have enabled a variety of access economy models, including those driven by labor or capital, and some by both. Examples include Airbnb, Uber, and TaskRabbit, just to name a few. Attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC BY 40 license. Online and digital business models allow almost anyone to start a business from scratch, in what some call the democratization of free enterprise. An economy so open to new players is a significant step toward increased buyer access to goods and services at all levels, even as it raises legitimate questions about how to ensure trust between the transacting parties. One issue facing the access economy is regulation. For example, should private individuals who rent out rooms be regulated like a Marriott hotel or perhaps a bed-and-breakfast operator, or simply be considered consumers allowing a guest to stay in their house? They are not only subject to income taxes on the money they earn, but they are increasingly likely to be charged hotel or occupancy taxes. Some cities have passed ordinances to limit real estate rentals to minimum stays of a week or a month. Shorter stays will be considered hotel rentals subject to regulations such as health and safety code rules. In the ride-sharing segment, some cities have said drivers must undergo the same scrutiny as taxi or limousine drivers, such as fingerprinting, commercial licensing, training, and background checks. The access economy presents an ethical and regulatory challenge for all levels of government, balancing the need to have at least some rules to protect consumers with the desire to allow competition from new business models. Big businesses are lobbying legislative bodies to apply the same regulation to the access economy as to the traditional economy in an effort to reduce or eliminate the threat of competition. This, in turn, raises an ethical question for society as a whole. Traditional means of raising capital, whether through initial public offerings, IPOs, or venture capital, are often dominated by big players. Should access to capital remain limited to those who have influence, or should the government pursue policies aimed at facilitating access to capital by small businesses? In one sign of increasing acceptance of the access economy, traditional businesses are starting to invest in smaller, more nimble platforms, as the following feature on Oasis Collections demonstrates. Cases from the real world. Oasis Collections. Oasis Collections is a real estate rental marketplace or platform similar to Airbnb, with a few key differences. Founded in 2009, the company fills a market niche by matching house and condo owners with travelers who want something more personal than a hotel, but more upscale than a room in someone's house. Oasis sought venture capital funding, but was turned down multiple times. An IPO was not feasible because the company was too small. This financing quandary demonstrates the limited access to capital that often forms a barrier for entrepreneurial startups to overcome. Oasis. Founders turn to sources often used by entrepreneurs, including a mix of seed funding from founders, friends, and family, and angel funding from a private investor. The company operated on a relatively tight budget for several years. In 2017, Hyatt Hotels decided to invest $20 million in Oasis after it had proven it had a niche in the access economy. Steve Haggerty, Hyatt's global head of capital strategy, said the investment reflects Hyatt's established strategy to superserve the high-end traveler by offering new experiences beyond traditional hotel stays. Travelers who book Oasis Collections homes are leisure and often business travelers who seek more space for a longer time, but also want the peace of mind, personalized service, and amenities they expect when staying with Hyatt. 62 Hyatt apparently now sees the access economic model as a force it cannot afford to ignore and has chosen to embrace and fund it. Oasis has the capital to expand its footprint, so CEO Parker Stanberry spends most of his time traveling to sign up new properties and new customers. "We definitely have our work cut out for us," he says. "We've got to hustle hard every day." 63. Critical thinking. Can a 60-year-old traditional hospitality corporation and a new access economy startup thrive side by side? Or will the experiment crash and burn? How likely is it that a big business in a similar type of industry would buy up the related access economy business, or use their market power to crush them instead of integrating the new model as Hyatt did? Defend your answer. As the Oasis case shows, getting access to funding is often a challenge for entrepreneurs. An IPO is essentially a method of funding a startup by selling its stock to the public at large, a process heavily regulated by the government. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, oversees the applicable federal laws, which require the filing of a registration statement and a full disclosure of financial information, along with months of effort by accountants, attorneys, underwriters, and company executives. The cost and complexity of this process usually outweighs the benefit for entrepreneurs who want to raise a modest amount of capital, $10 million or less. However, as a matter of business ethics, businesses of all sizes should be able to participate fully in the U.S. economy and not be shut out by the gatekeepers of capital, the investment banking community. Thus, in 2012, Congress enacted new legislation called the JOBS, Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act, which amended U.S. securities laws to enable small businesses to use a variation on a technique known as crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is already in use as a way to give or lend money to consumers and businesses through web portals such as GoFundMe. But those sites do not offer SEC-compliant sales of securities in a business, as the JOBS Act now permits emerging growth companies, EGCs, seeking capital to do. This new type of funding should help level the playing field for EGCs. Many view it as a way of democratizing access to capital. 64. One entrepreneurial startup that used this new method successfully is Beta Brand, a San Francisco-based retail clothing company that doubles as a crowdfunding platform. The company lets users of its platform crowdsource clothing concepts and develop prototypes into actual products. Link to learning. This website connects to one of several active business-oriented crowdfunding websites to offer emerging growth companies or small business several avenues of funding, including equity, convertible notes, and debt. The primary advantage is the opportunity to raise equity capital without big fees and red tape. The gig economy. Opportunities for limited-term employment, sometimes referred to as gigs, have existed for decades in the music and entertainment industry. They have even been likened to the widespread small-scale self-employment typical of the pre-union and pre-industrial eras. 65. What is new about gig work today is that it is often made possible by technology, which frees workers from the need to travel to the employer's workplace and allows them to work multiple jobs at once. This offers workers, and perhaps even managers, a new set of advantages and disadvantages in the employment equation. The gig economy is an environment in which individuals and businesses contract with independent workers for short-term assignments, engagements, or projects, offering few or no benefits beyond compensation. A freelancer or contractor is a self-employed worker who may work with more than one client, but who usually has a contract that covers the details of the job, including compensation. The terms freelancer and contractor are generally used interchangeably. However, if there is a distinction, it is that a freelancer is almost always self-employed and works for multiple companies, whereas a contractor may or may not be self-employed and may work for only one company at a time. Figure 10. 8. Some may be happily committed to their independent status. Others are involuntarily self-employed while they search for more permanent or full-time positions. Gigs might be full or part-time. They might be limited to a specific task or a specific time, and they may serve as the worker's sole employment or as a moonlighting job. Regardless of the terminology, the trend toward a gig economy has begun. This graphic is a two-column chart titled Employee Relationships. The column on the left is titled Employees, and the bulleted points are full-time, single employer, benefits, and employment taxes are split between employee and employer. The column on the right is titled Non-employees, contractors, freelancers, gig workers, and the bulleted points are part-time, multiple employers, clients, no benefits, and employment taxes must be paid entirely by employee. Figure 10. 8 different models of work include widely varying terms and conditions, but the two most basic divisions are listed. Of course, someone might also be an employee who works part-time and may or may not receive benefits, or a contractor might have a standing contract with a client that provides some benefits, although the contractor is not considered an employee. Attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC BY 40 license. A recent study by Intuit predicted that by 2020, a surprisingly large 40% of U.S. workers would be independent contractors, and according to the Freelancers Union, more than 55 million adults in the United States, that is, 35% of the U.S. workforce, already work as independent contractors and/or moonlighters. 66. The nature of freelance work leaves some workers searching for the qualities of traditional full-time work, and the Freelancers Union has attempted to provide them by giving its more than 375,000 members a voice through policy advocacy and access to some group benefits. 67. Many people value the flexibility of freelance work hours. They work off premises, frequently at home, make their own schedules, and juggle assignments as needed. However, benefits such as health care and retirement plans are usually unavailable, unless an employment agency sponsors them for those it places in temporary work. Freelancers most often must establish their own retirement accounts and obtain their own health insurance through an employed spouse or partner, or in a health care insurance exchange. Robert B. Reich, the former Secretary of Labor and professor at the University of California, Berkeley, says, This on-demand economy means a work life that is unpredictable, doesn't pay very well, and is terribly insecure. 68. Unlike employees on the payroll, gig workers must also pay both the employee's and the employer's halves of the federal payroll tax, referred to as FICA Federal Contributions Insurance Act, which funds Social Security and Medicare. This combined tax currently totals 15.3% of a freelancer's earnings. Payroll taxes overall bring in about 24% of combined federal, state, and local government revenue, 69 making them the second largest source of government revenue in the United States after individual federal income taxes. Here is one of the ethical issues employers face. Are they dodging their fair share of taxes and failing to offer benefits by forcing people who could be their employees into contract work instead? Cases from the real world. Gig work. Have you ever been a gig worker? A recent study found that 37% of U.S. workers participate in the gig economy, and government and other estimates say 40% will be working outside traditional full-time jobs by 2020. Clearly, the gig economy is not a fad. The issue is often whether it benefits only the company or also the worker. Do people actually like being gig workers, or has the economy forced them into it, sometimes by taking second and third jobs? A national survey by the Freelancers Union found that 2 in 3 of the 55 million U.S. workers who freelanced in 2016 did so because they wanted to, not because they were forced to. The other one-third did it out of necessity. 70. Although motivations for gig work may vary, it is clear that employers are benefiting. Of course, part-time contract workers are not new. What is new is the way gig work has spread to many white-collar professions. Here are 2 examples. Joseph creates websites for a marketing company and a digital content studio. He also creates and edits motion graphics. It's been a fun ride, tiring but fun, he says. Finding time is always the struggle. I'm working on a freelance project every weekend. Joseph thinks gig work has helped him improve his graphic skills faster than he might have done in a traditional job. I get to move around to different companies, and if one thing falls out, I still have other things I can fall back on, and it keeps me sharp. Nicole, a mother of 3, is a full-time clerk at a law firm, but she decided she needed extra money and signed up with a work-at-home call center. Her husband has joined too. Nicole says her gig job is one she could continue when she retires, and she likes that possibility. 71. This is the future of work, says Diane Mulcahy, a private equities investor whose clients often benefit financially from the use of gig workers. The full-time employee is getting to be the worker of last resort. 72. Critical thinking. Aside from the lack of benefits, what are the potentially negative effects for society of the gig economy? What happens to the concept of loyalty between worker and employer if we move to a mostly gig economy? Will that result be negative or positive? For whom and why? Microsoft was one of the first companies to save huge amounts of money by hiring contract workers, avoiding paying benefits and payroll taxes, and escaping a wide variety of employment and labor laws. However, the company found itself the object of legal action by both the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, and its contract workers on the grounds that a large portion of its contract workforce should have been classified as employees instead. Microsoft ended up conceding the IRS position that the workers were de facto employees. It issued W-2s, earnings statements, for the workers past 2 years and paid its share of payroll taxes. It hired some of the workers as well, but others sued for fringe benefits they had been denied as freelancers. After lengthy litigation and appeals, in 2000, Microsoft agreed to pay thousands of plaintiffs a total of $97 million, the value of stock options they would have received if it had employed them. It was the largest settlement ever received by a group of temporary employees. Today, Microsoft has more 110,000 employees, and about 75% are temporary or contract workers. However, Microsoft says it now requires staffing companies to give temporary and gig workers it hires fringe benefits. 73. A particularly hazy work relationship exists between employers and interns. Many business or other professional track students seek, indeed, are encouraged to find internships while still in school. Sometimes these positions are paid, sometimes not. Some carry academic credit and some do not. The tasks interns perform, and therefore the quality of the professional experiences they gain, can vary widely. However, many interns clearly function as a source of unpaid labor. Ethical boundaries are often crossed, even if students are willing to undertake these positions. Although state labor laws governing internships vary, responsible companies will insist that their interns are paid for their services or receive academic credit or both. Learning objectives. By the end of this section, you will be able to discuss the application of robotics and the workplace changes it will bring. Identify artificial intelligence applications in the workplace. Explain the ethical challenges presented by the use of artificial intelligence. As we have seen earlier in this chapter, general advances in computer technology have already enabled significant changes in the workplace. In this module, we will look at how future workforce demographics may be affected by existing and emerging technologies. The combination of automation and robotics has already changed not only the workplace but everyday life as well. It also comes with a host of ethical and legal issues, not least being where humans will fit in the workplace of tomorrow. Managers of the future may ask, does my company or society benefit from having a human do a job rather than a robot, or is it all about efficiency and cost? Robotics and automation in the workplace. Advances in the field of robotics, a combination of computer science, mechanical and electronics engineering, and science, have meant that machines or related forms of automation now do the work of humans in a wide variety of settings, such as medicine, where robots perform surgeries previously done by the surgeon's hand. Robots have made it easier and cheaper for employers to get work done. The downside, however, is that some reasonably well-paying jobs that provided middle-class employment for humans have become the province of machines. A McKinsey Global Institute study of 800 occupations in nearly 50 countries showed that more than 800 million jobs, or 20% of the global workforce, could be lost to robotics by the year 2030. 74. The effects could be even more pronounced in wealthy, industrialized nations, such as the United States and Germany, where researchers expect that up to one-third of the workforce will be affected. By 2030, the report estimates that 39 million to 73 million jobs may be eliminated in the United States. Given that the level of employment in the United States in mid-2018 is approaching 150 million workers, this potential loss of jobs represents roughly 1/4 to 1/2 of total current employment, but a smaller share of employment in 2030 because of future population and employment growth. The big question, then, is what will happen to all these displaced workers? The McKinsey report estimates that about 20 million of them will be able to transfer easily to other industries for employment. But this still leaves between 20 million and more than 50 million displaced workers who will need new employment. Occupational retraining is likely to be a path taken by some, but older workers, as well as geographically immobile workers, are unlikely to opt for such training and may endure job loss for protracted periods. In developing countries, the report predicts that the number of jobs requiring less education will shrink. Furthermore, robotics will have less impact in poorer countries because these nations' workers are already paid so little that employers will save less on labor costs by automating. According to the report, for example, by the same date of 2030, India is expected to lose only about 9% of its jobs to emerging technology, which occupations will be most heavily affected. Not surprisingly, the McKinsey report concludes that machine operators, factory workers, and food workers will be hit hardest because robots can do their jobs more precisely and efficiently. It's cheaper to buy a $35,000 robotic arm than it is to hire an employee who's inefficiently making $15 an hour bagging French fries, said a former McDonald's CEO in another article about the consequences of robots in the labor market. 75. He estimated that automation has already cut the number of people working in a McDonald's by half since the 1960s, and that this trend will continue. Other hard-hit jobs will include mortgage brokers, paralegals, accountants, some office staff, cashiers, toll booth operators, and car and truck drivers. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, estimates that 80,000 fast food jobs will disappear by 2024, as growing numbers of retail stores like Walmart, CVS, and McDonald's provide automated self-checkout options. It has been estimated that 75 million retail jobs are at risk over the course of the next decade. Furthermore, it has been estimated that as self-driving cars and trucks replace automobile and truck drivers, 5 million jobs will be lost in the early 2020s. Jobs requiring human interaction are typically at low risk for being replaced by automation. These include nurses and most physicians, lawyers, teachers, and bartenders, as well as social workers, estimated by the BLS to grow by 19% by 2024. Hairstylists and cosmetologists, youth sports coaches, and songwriters. McKinsey also anticipates that specialized lower-wage jobs like gardening, plumbing, and care work will be less affected by automation. The challenge to the economy, then, will be how to address the prospect of substantial job loss. About 20 million to 50 million people will not be able to easily find new jobs. The McKinsey report notes that new technology, as in the past, will generate new types of jobs. But this is unlikely to help more than a small fraction of those confronting unemployment. So the United States will likely face some combination of rapidly rising unemployment, an urgent need to retrain 20 million or more workers, and recourse to policies whereby the government serves as an employer of last resort. Ethics across time and cultures. Advances in robotics in Japan. Japan has long maintained its position as the world's top exporter of robots, selling nearly 50% of the global market share in terms of both units and dollar value. At first, Japan's robots were found mainly in factories making automobiles and electronic equipment, performing simple jobs such as assembling parts. Now Japan is poised to take the lead by putting robots in diverse areas including aeronautics, medicine, disaster mitigation, and search and rescue, performing jobs that human either cannot or, for safety reasons such as defusing a bomb, should not do. Leading universities, such as the University of Tokyo, offer advanced programs to teach students not only how to create robots, but also how to understand the way robot technology is transforming Japanese society. Universities, research institutions, corporations, and government entities are collaborating to implement the country's next generation of advanced artificial intelligence robot technology, because Japan truly sees the rise of robotics as the fourth industrial revolution. New uses of robots include hazardous cleanup in the wake of the 2011 earthquake and tsunami disaster that destroyed the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. After those events, Japan accelerated its development and application of disaster response robots to go into radioactive areas and handle remediation. In the laboratory at the University of Tokyo School of Engineering, advances are also being made in technology that mimics the capabilities of the human eye. One application allows scientists a clear field of vision in extreme weather conditions that are otherwise difficult or impossible for humans to study. Japanese researchers are also developing a surgical robotic system with a three-dimensional endoscope to conduct high-risk surgery in remote mountainous regions with no specialized doctors. This system is in use in operating rooms in the United States as well, but Japan is taking it a step further by using it in teletherapy, where the patient is hundreds of miles away from the doctor actually performing the surgery. In Japan's manufacturing culture, robots are viewed not as threats, but as solutions to many of the nation's most critical problems. Indeed, with Japan's below replacement fertility since the mid-1970s, Japan's workforce has been aging quite rapidly. In fact, beginning in the period from 2010 to 2015, the Japanese population started shrinking. Clearly, robots are potentially quite important as a means to offset prospective adverse consequences of a diminishing labor force. Critical thinking. Does using robots cause a loss of jobs, a shifting of jobs, or both? How should society respond? How might the use of robots add to the increasing inequality in the U.S. economy? Do companies have an ethical responsibility to their workers to training or other support to workers displaced by automation? Artificial intelligence. Although some robots are remotely controlled by a human operator or a computer program written by a human, robots can also learn to work without human intervention, and often faster, more efficiently, and more cheaply than humans can. The branch of science that uses computer algorithms to replicate human intelligent behavior by machines with minimal human intervention is called artificial intelligence, AI. Related professions in which the implementation of AI might have particular impact are banking, financial advising, and the sales of securities and managing of stock portfolios. According to global consulting giant Accenture, AI is a collection of advanced technologies that allows machines to sense, comprehend, act, and learn. Accenture contends that AI will be the next great advance in the workplace. It is set to transform business in ways we have not seen since the Industrial Revolution, fundamentally reinventing how businesses run, compete, and thrive. When implemented holistically, these technologies help improve productivity and lower costs, unlocking more creative jobs and creating new growth opportunities. 76 Accenture looked at 12 of the world's most developed countries, which account for more than half of world economic output, to assess the impact of AI in 16 specific industries. According to its report, AI has the potential to significantly increase corporate profitability, double rates of economic growth by 2035, increase labor productivity by as much as 40%, and boost gross value added by $14 trillion by 2035, based on an almost 40% increase in rates of return. 77. Even news articles have begun to be written by robots. 78. Link to learning. Read this article about AI and its applications, and watch this video about how automation and AI are changing the accounting profession to learn more. Also, read this article about how some startups are creating new AI-related technology and products to automate accounting systems to learn more. A report by KPMG, another global consulting and accounting firm, indicates that almost 50% of the activities people perform in the workplace today could be automated, most often by using AI and automation technology that already exist. The ethical question facing the business community, and all of us on a broader level, is about the type of society in which we all want to live and the role automation will play in it. The answer is not simply about efficiency. A company should consider many variables as it moves toward increased automation. Figure 10.9. This graphic shows a large circle in the middle, and then 4 smaller circles around the outside of it that slightly overlap. The center circle says issues to be considered when expanding the use of artificial intelligence. Starting from the top and going clockwise, the circles around the outside say company's core values, cybersecurity, pace and extend of the automation process, and retraining and empowerment of workers. Figure 10. 9 managers should balance multiple variables as the workplace moves toward increased use of artificial intelligence, automation, and robotics. Attribution. Copyright Rice University, OpenStax, under CC by 40 license. For example, as AI programs become better able to interact with humans, especially online, should a company be required to inform its customers if and when they are dealing with any form of AI and not a person? If people cannot tell when they are communicating with an AI program and not a human being, has an AI-controlled computer or robot reached a form personhood? Why or why not? Although traditional business ethics can provide us with a starting place to answer such questions, we will also need a philosophical approach, because we also need to decide whether it is necessary to have consciousness to be considered a person. This issue is further mudded when a human employee largely is tapping AI to serve customers or clients. Should this combination of human and AI assistance be made patently clear? Another issue in AI and all forms of automation is liability. According to Reuters News, lawmakers in Europe have agreed on the need for European Union-wide legislation that would regulate robots and their use, including an ethical framework for their development and deployment, as well as the establishment of liability for the actions of robots, including self-driving cars. 79. The legal and ethical questions in assigning liability for decisions made by robots and AI are not only fascinating to debate, but also an important legal matter society must resolve. The answers will one day directly affect the day-to-day lives of billions of people.